Ready to go in 5, 4, 3.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to your regular town council meeting of Tuesday, January 7th. If you'd all rise and join me in a pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Ms. Reed, if you'd call the roll.
Councilor Stickland?
I'm here.
Councilor Kelly?
Here.
Sheriff Thornton?
Here. And to Acknowledgements Council.
I just would remind everyone that on Wednesday, January 15th, the Community Friendly Connection will have a meeting here at 5 o'clock with lots of good things to be discussed, and we would invite as many citizens as interested to come to that meeting, 5 o'clock on the 15th.
Thank you. Any further acknowledgements? Seeing none, to Good and Welfare. Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak under Good and Welfare this evening? We're at Good and Welfare. If there's anybody who wants to speak under Good and Welfare this evening? Seeing none, to the acceptance of minutes. Acceptance of the Town Council minutes of December 17th, 2019.
So moved.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
We'll carry 3-0. And on to a presentation, the fiscal year 2019 audit presentation by R.H. Smith and Company. Welcome.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Thank you for having us here today. My name is Erica McKay. I'm with R.H. Smith and Company. And this evening, we're going to be going over a brief summary of your fiscal year 2019 audit. So if you look up here, this is going to be our first slide. This is a representation of your balance sheet, which shows all your major funds. Starting on the left, going to right, you have your general fund, your sewer special revenue, your CIP public works, and then your other governmental funds, which are further broken out in the back of the audit. This will include your special revenues, your capital projects, such as rescue fees, ballpark, stormwater, wastewater. So if we take a look at the general fund here, your assets are going to be at the top, and this is what you have at year end. So this includes your cash, your inventory, your prepaids, taxes, and this is at $14.8 million. Your liabilities, which is what is owed at year end, this includes your accounts payable, your accrued salaries, and escrows. This totals $5 million. Your deferred inflows of resources, this is going to be the amount of tax receivables that are expected to be received after more than 60 days past year end. This is approximately $1.7 million. Taking all of that into consideration, it leaves you with fund balance of approximately $8.2 million, $57,000 of which is non-spendable, and that is your inventory and your prepaids. The assigned fund balance of $524,000 includes your $500,000 use of undesignated fund balance for next year, FY20, and a $24,000 carry forward for police. This leaves approximately $7.6 million left in your undesignated fund balance. What we typically like to see sitting in your undesignated fund balance is approximately 30 to 90 days of your operating budget. Last year, your operating budget was around $31 million, and if we approximate 30 days, that would be 2.6 million, 60 days, 5.2, 90 days would be 7.8, which puts you right around the 90-day mark, which is definitely very healthy, what we like to see. A lot of times, if people have excess of that 90 days, that's not a bad thing. It doesn't mean that you should be using a lot more to offset your budgets. That's not really what we like to see. We'd recommend actually just putting that in a capital project reserve, a special revenue reserve, or paying off any of your debt. A lot of times, if you use a higher amount of undesignated fund balance for your budget, it can create fluctuations that would swing, it'd be great for the next year. Your taxes would go down, but the year after that, you're gonna see a huge swing, and that's definitely not what we want to happen. If we go to the next slide here, this is gonna be a 3-year comparison of your general fund, non-spendable, and assigned fund balances. If you take a look, starting at left to right, left is 2019, 2018, and then 2017. So as you can see, in 2019, you have a slightly less balance than you did in previous years. Much of this is due to the amount of undesignated fund balances that were used to offset the budget. So if we look at 2017, you used $550,000. In 2018, you used $600,000. And in 2019, you used $500,000. So that's kind of where that swing is coming from. If we go on to the next slide here, this is going to be a representation of 3 years of your undesignated fund balance. As you can see, it has had a steady incline, which is definitely great to see. We went from approximately $6 million in undesignated funds in 2017. In FY18, $6.4 million, which is approximately $360,000 increase. In 2018 to 2019, you increased your undesignated fund balance by approximately $1.2 million. So right now, you went from $6.4 million to $7.6 million. This increase is kind of a combination of a few things. Your expenditures from your budget were not fully spent, which is great. We don't want to see you going over. And then your revenues, you received a lot more interest revenue this year, which was great. You also received more taxes from your prior year liens and tax receivables than other years. Going on to the next page here, this is going to be your statement of revenues and expenditures. And as with the balance sheet, which we previously looked at, this is going to be your your major funds, and all non-major funds are going to be combined in that other governmental funds column. So if we start and look at the general fund, your revenues for the year were approximately $31 million. Your expenditures for the year, $28.8 million, which left you with an extra $2.6 million, of which you had approximately $1.1 million that was transferred out to other funds, leaving you with a net increase of $1.15 million in your fund balance. And here we'll go on to the next page. And this is going to be a breakdown of your budget to actuals. So starting at the top, this is going to be your revenue budget. As you can see, you have definitely, well, if you look at all the way on the right here, it's going to be your variance column. You've actually received more revenues than you expected. The only area where you received less is going to be your unclassified. So that's $611,000 increase. And then if you look at your expenditures, which are right below that, you'll see that you have remaining funds in just about every single department, which left you with an additional $1.1 million. And that is why your fund balance has increased the way it has this year. Going to the next slide here, this is just going to be a breakdown of the percentages of what your revenue is made up of. So the 3 largest is obviously going to be your taxes, which makes up about 92% of your revenues. Licenses and permits make about approximately 4%, and then intergovernmental revenues, 3%. The next slide here, this is going to be a breakdown of your expenditures. So if you look at the top 3, the largest expense is going to be your education, which is 43%, public safety at 18%, and general government expenditures at 16%. And what we have here, this is going to be a comparison of the past 2 fiscal years of your revenues and expenditures. What we typically like to see is consistency here. We like to see stagnant percentages. That way we don't see any major changes. And that's exactly what we're seeing here. One of the largest changes that you will see is to your license and permits. You've received a lot more revenue this year in a lot of excise tax than you have in previous years, which is great. And then you've also received more tax revenue, as mentioned before, which is a lot of your prior year liens and tax receivables. And overall, I believe, oh, yep, we've got one more slide here. This here is going to be a breakdown of your non-major governmental funds. If you wanted to see a further breakdown, we do have a breakdown even further in the audit, which of the special revenues for the ballpark and your capital projects. And so looking here from left to right, you've got your special revenues and your capital projects. The total revenues for the special revenue funds this year came in at just under $1 million. Your expenditures for the special revenues came in at approximately $500,000. And your capital project expenditures were approximately $500,000 as well. With transfers, this leaves a net increase in fund balance to your special revenues with of $16,000, leaving you with a $338,000 fund balance in special revenues, and a decrease to your capital projects of approximately $140,000, which is due to using funds in your wastewater and stormwater, and that leaves you with a fund balance this year of almost $500,000. Were there any questions that anyone might have on the presentation or on the audit?
Through the chair.
Sir.
I have one on page 8 on the comparison schedule revenues and expenditures, general fund.
Yes.
Why do we have public safety in 2 places?
Yes, sorry about that. That is a typo on our end. One is public works and one is supposed to be public safety.
Oh, okay. All
I'm
right.
sorry.
No, that's fine. I was just curious as to.
And if you
Which
wanted
one
to
is public works?
So if we go to,
Okay.
yes, if you look at the next page on page 9, you'll see the breakdown of those expenditures right there.
Okay. All right, good. Thank you.
All set, Mike?
All set? Well, thank you all very much.
Thank you very much,
Okay, thank
appreciate
you.
it. Moving forward, a public hearing. Shall we amend Chapter 78 zoning, Article 3, Conformance and Nonconformance, Division 2, Nonconformities, Section 78-180, Appeals from Restrictions on Nonconforming Uses. And we will, actually, Larry, before we open the public hearing, do you want to give us a rundown of what these changes are?
Yeah, what I would like to do, Chair Thornton, is to ask our town planner, Jeffrey Hinderleiter, to come up and do a quick overview.
Hello, Jeffrey.
Hello. Thank you for considering this. As our chair read, the proposal is the amendment involves the removal of a ordinance, which is the appeals from restrictions on nonconforming uses standard. What this standard does is it allows nonconforming uses of land or nonconforming uses of structures to be enlarged, increased, extended, moved, reconstructed, structurally altered, resumed, or converted to another nonconforming use after the use ceases for a period of 10 years. It's an a lot of stuff you can do with nonconforming uses on that, with this particular standard. So basically what this standard does with most ordinances, you have a cap at 2 years where you can resume a nonconforming use if you cease its operation. In addition to extending that time frame by 8 years to a total of 10 years for capping it, this standard is definitely not a typical nonconforming use standard as you find in almost all ordinances, certainly all ordinances that I've ever worked on or that I've seen. Normally, what nonconforming use standards do is number one, they cap it at 2 years, and number two, they allow you to resume the use if you cease it within 2 years. You need to resume it within 2 years. Or in some cases, you can expand it, but within the same footprint. We currently have a nonconforming use standard that allows that, and that standard will continue. But what this particular standard does is it, in addition to allowing you to resume the use and also to enlarge it within the same footprint, it also allows you to move the nonconforming use to another portion of the lot. It allows you to enlarge it beyond the existing footprint. And one of the big ones with this standard is it allows you to convert one nonconforming use to another nonconforming use. So you have an example in the memo, and I'll just say it for public purposes, and an example of how this could be applied. Let's say you live in a residential neighborhood, and when I say this example, I make no judgments on the uses. I'm just saying, you live in a strictly residential neighborhood, and there's a convenience store that's right next to you. The owner decides to close the convenience store. So this convenience store happens to be not allowed in that particular district. Just residential uses are allowed. And because it's not allowed, it's defined as a nonconforming use. But under the current standard, the one that you're considering, the current owner of that convenience store or another owner could resume that use up to a period of 10 years. They could enlarge that use beyond its existing footprint up to a period of 10 years. And really the big one is they could actually convert that use to any other non-conforming use. So you could convert that use to a medical marijuana dispensary without getting into all the legalities. You could convert it to a salvage facility. You could, if the use is non-conforming, you could convert it under this standard to that other non-conforming use. It's pretty extreme. It really is. And I'd just like to remind the council that we do have non-conforming use standards already in addition to this one. There are non-conforming use standards that are very typical in almost every other communities where you are allowed to take advantage of resuming non-conforming uses within a 2-year time frame. Also, non-conforming uses can be maintained. You can transfer you could sell your property and it can remain a non-conforming use. The big piece of this is if you cease using the non-conforming use. This standard will not be changed. It will continue. So the standard that's in front of you, what this standard proposes to do is to change that 10-year period, go to the 2-year period, and change the big piece that allows you to convert one non-conforming use to another non-conforming use. The planning board voted unanimously to support this proposed amendment, And one note about that, that support that the planning board asked me to pass along to the council was that the recommendation for recommending that the council support was made, but they want you to know that they'd like to explore that 2-year period and maybe extend it a few other years. It's currently not on any of the planning board's ordinance amendment schedule. We have a number of other ordinances that we're working on right now, but I wanted to pass that along to you. So,
Very good, thank you.
Through the chair.
Sure, absolutely.
So, I'm a little confused, Jeffrey, so let me just ask you a couple of questions.
Sure.
Are you trying to change it from 2 years to 10 years, or from 10 years to 2 years?
10 years to 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you can right now shuffle that from any non-conforming use the way the ordinance is written now? Or is it gonna allow it if we change it?
The way the ordinance is written right now.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Through the chair, Jeffrey. I know you said the planning board supports this, but do you support this also?
Yes, yeah. With one of the reasons why, and I feel that I'm a pretty proactive development type of, we certainly help people with development proposals that make sense. But there's some danger here with this, especially as we see more and more land being removed, being built on. There's no doubt that we're going to see more infill development. And a lot of that infill development is relatively old, has old uses attached to it, and the area around that development has changed. There's certainly a lot of portions of Old Orchard Beach that are turning into more residential. So by having a standard that allows you to convert a non-conforming use to any other non-conforming use can significantly change the establishment of a neighborhood, no matter if you look at it for traffic purposes, for all kinds of different lighting, all kinds of things.
Okay.
Very good, thank you.
Sure, thank you.
Okay, well, we will open the public hearing on this proposed change at 6:54. Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak under the public hearing? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing at 18:54. Any further comments or concerns from the councilors? Seeing none, we'll move to a second public hearing, business licenses and approval. Kris and James Zerio, 321-5-8, 15 Winona Avenue, 3 year-round rentals. And Barbara Hickey and Jeffrey Fairbanks, 107-3-6-15, 6 Country Drive, 1 year-round bedroom rental with a 2 occupant maximum. And we will open that public hearing at 6:55. Is there anyone wishing to speak under this public hearing?
Hi, councilors. Thanks for letting me speak. My name's Kelsey Daniels. I live on Meadow Lane in the same development as the 6 Country Drive.
Okay.
And our concern, and it's shared by several people here, is that if something like this is allowed in a residential area, it can change the tone of the neighborhood. Several of us who've recently purchased homes there were told that none of these Airbnbs would be allowed. There was no short-term rentals allowed in that development. And that was some of the deciding factors of why we purchased a home there. And so for now to find out that there has been an Airbnb going for maybe 2 years, I think, it's discouraging to find out that that's been happening. It's a residential area, and I think Airbnbs are considered a business because they collect a lodging tax. Is collected by possibly the third-party platform, which in this case would be Airbnb. And although they remit the funds to the jurisdiction, the state of Maine, the individual is supposed to file a tax return, a sales tax return, in which they have an EIN number and a business code saying that this portion of the taxes paid to the state of Maine applies to my lodging, short-term lodging. So some of the other cities like Portland and South Portland have had to address this issue. And I think that possibly it's time for Old Orchard Beach to also address this issue. If it is a business, then is it allowed in the zones that are designated as residential only? And bed and breakfasts, by definition, have a transient occupancy, short-term, offer a meal in the morning, and for somebody to just say, well, we'll stop offering breakfast in the morning and then it won't be a bed and breakfast, seems a little bit like semantics to me. You know, it's not changing anything, but you're not allowing them to come and cook an egg in your kitchen. You're still restricting them to the use of appliances in the kitchen, but you're still set up as a, you know, what would be a business arrangement. And I feel that if it is a business, then it shouldn't be allowed in that zone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Is there anyone else from the public who'd like to speak under this public hearing?
I don't know if I'll need this, but I'll use it. My name's Rick White. I'm a direct abutter to Jeff and Barbara. I'm not going to stand before you tonight and say that I have a noise issue with what's going on over there. To me, it's not about the noise, but it is about several other things involved in this Airbnb. And that's how it's been advertised on the internet for I don't know how long. It's an Airbnb. We've had, and I wish my other neighbor were here tonight to back this up, but we do have occasion where guests that are coming to their Airbnb pull into our driveway by mistake, start unloading their stuff, knock on the door. We have to turn them around. We have a dog, irritates a dog. Minor disruption, still a disruption. And I think this has already been hit on. I can't hear well over there. In the covenants that we all were provided when we built or moved into that neighborhood, stated no business. If you're bringing people to your residence, you're charging them money, you're claiming that one way or another on your taxes, you have a business. That's an R4 residential zone to the best of my knowledge. There should be no business allowed within that zone. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak under the public hearing this evening?
Hi, John Martinez, 7 Stanley Street. I just wanted to come up here and say that we already had this issue come up in our neighborhood. The next door neighbor to me on my street, Stanley Street, she moved in there with no other reason than to turn it into an Airbnb. She actually didn't even have true residency there. She had a residency in Scarborough. Her children are in Scarborough schools. So that is different than this. But they had 2 rooms being rented. There could be 4 to 5 cars coming in, going in at all hours of the evening, and just basically I had a motel next door to me. Now when I moved into here, there's covenants that are legal and binding that even if you give a license for them to do this, which I hope is I'm not sure what's going to happen. I'm just saying that the covenants in our neighborhood associate HOA actually don't allow for businesses that incur certain types of inconveniences to our neighborhood. Now, Airbnb is a motel. It's not the same person who lives there, because I am not here to tell anybody how to live in their home. But I am saying that if you're going to open up a motel in your home, in our neighborhood, then the covenants will certainly do that. The only way that I see that it's happening is you give a license and we change the covenants. So if the first thing is that you guys give a license beyond, you can tell that we don't want it in there, and we've already chased the woman out, by the way, the lady who came in, and that's what I'm afraid of. If you let this happen, there's 10 more properties that are not bought and built on yet. And if you let one person, then what's to stop the next person who did exactly what they did in my place, which was build a house expressly to have an Airbnb? There's nothing to stop them. So what it does is it sets a precedent, and I think it sets a bad precedent for our particular neighborhood. I know it's not the same in every neighborhood, but I just wanted to say that that's my concern, and I still have it even now. So, but thank you for listening.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak under the public hearing this evening?
Hi, I'm Jeff Fairbanks.
Good evening.
I'm the property owner. So what we're asking for is a license from the town. The issues with the association, they don't go away, whether or not we get a license or not. The town, and not once but twice, has approved us for a license application, looked at our home, the structural, the zoning ordinances, fire safety, police, and et cetera. We were actually approved for a license on October 15th. There was a administrative error. The license itself was referred to as a condominium unit, and after a process with the town, we've now reapplied. Here's the thing. What we're doing is asking for a room in our house. Now, here's the other thing, is that it is no different than us having a roommate in our house. We're owner-occupied, we're in our home. As our neighbor next to us said, there's never been any issues with complaints of noise or any other issues. I'm unsure. I think he might have said something about dogs. There's no dogs have ever stayed in our, one dog I think stayed in our house about 3 years ago, but that was.
We made their dogs bark because one of our guests went to their house and knocked on their door.
Okay, and again, if we had guests coming to our home and asked them and gave them our address, it's possible anybody that we invited to our home might not know where we live and could perhaps knock on somebody else's door. Out of all of the things that have been suggested, I don't hear anything that's directed directly for what we have done. In terms of the covenants and the bylaws, Town Manager Mead had indicated that he had talked to King about that previously. Larry, I don't know.
You gotta discuss it with us.
Oh, sorry, Larry, I don't know if you could clarify what you had told me.
Again, you need to address us.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, so the residential use of our house, I think, Barbara, maybe if you give the case law, might be helpful. I mean, I don't like to go too much into case law, but there's a misunderstanding about rentals and residential use. The state of Maine has addressed this specific issue before with people renting condos in a neighborhood where there was a no commercial activity clause in a covenant, and the state of Maine specifically has said that people living in your house, even if money is exchanged, does not change the fundamental nature of that from residential to commercial. There needs to be more. We, because of this process, are no longer even looking to rent 2 rooms in our house. We're looking to rent 1, and as you see from the license itself, we've had extensive talks with code enforcement to tailor what we're doing to satisfy everybody. So we're only have 2 people in our home. The important part about that is that we're also going to make sure that we don't offer other services, because the cases that I just gave you indicates that the just exchanging of money, somebody living in your home, that still is it's a residential purpose. People are literally living with us in our home. The important thing about that as well is that I'm a nurse. I work night shift. My house needs to be quiet because I have to work. I have to sleep during the day. And as Rick has indicated, that our house is quiet. We don't have problems with noise. We have a 50-foot driveway. There is no problems with cars parking, especially given that we're only going to be asking to rent one room in our home, 2 people, so maybe a maximum of 2 extra cars in our 50-foot driveway where we can fit 8 cars. Does the town council, do they have concerns that there's an issue with issuing us a license for this activity?
Well, when you're done speaking, and we close the public hearing, if the council has any questions, they can ask you directly.
Okay, I just would like to, I mean, I just...
The council will have the opportunity at the end to ask if they have any
to ask us specific questions. Okay, well, I mean, so basically, a lot of the issues I heard seem to be the issues of the covenants and bylaws. I've had conversations with King Weinstein. He still has, I think, 11 lots in our development, so he still is in charge of the association. And my understanding, I've given him the case law that I have to indicate that it is not a business purpose, and that because we rent a unit in our home instead of the entire home, rental parts of our bylaws aren't applicable. But either way, that is something that is, if it needs to be resolved, I think it's something that's separate from the license itself. Obviously, he's waiting for me to say, well, I have my license, and then he will address one way or the other whether or not he feels that our activity is in violation of the covenants and bylaws. I don't think that those issues are relevant to us getting a license. I think those issues are we in compliance with the ordinance? The license itself has been signed off on every count. The neighbors haven't indicated any specific complaints about us that have been addressed through any noise ordinance violations or any other violations for what we've done in our home. I don't think it's fair to put a burden on us of what may happen in the future. If things happen in the future with our property, it's that there's mechanisms in place to address that through the town, through the police, and even through our association. So I don't really feel there's any reason to not vote to give us the license, because we have worked with the town to tailor. We originally had were with 2 units, and obviously we've scaled that back a little bit because we have heard and are concerned about keeping our neighborhood quiet and people in the neighborhood happy. I hope I've addressed all of the issues, and again, if I haven't, please ask me questions, and I'll come back up and address them.
Thank you.
And I just want to say one quick thing. One of our residents mentioned that other towns have been addressing this issue. Indeed, she's correct. Portland, South Portland, Cape Elizabeth, they have all looked at this issue. Many of them have placed restrictions on what's called unhosted rentals, where somebody's renting out their entire property when they're not staying there. But by and large, all of these towns are still allowing hosted rentals like we do in residential areas.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak under?
Could I have your name again?
Yes, Kelsey Daniels. Thanks for your patience.
Just so you know, we can't get into somebody coming up and then somebody coming up, somebody coming up. If you have something new to introduce that hasn't been discussed.
I called the code enforcement officer, Mr. Haskell, on my own way back in end of October, I think, when this first came around, and I said, we recently bought a home in this neighborhood, and told him where we lived. We would like to know if it's okay to rent out one of our bedrooms on a short-term basis, such as Airbnb, in this particular zone, and he told me absolutely not. And I said, well, I'm not sure. It's come to my attention that somebody's doing it in this development. We bought a home here, not expecting this was going to be a problem. And he said, okay, well, I don't know about that one. I would have to go look at that. But it just struck me when I first said that I wanted to rent one of my rooms out in my bedroom, short-term, transient, you know, that he said absolutely not. That's what he told me, right over the phone. So I just wanted to pass that on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak under the public hearing this evening? Good evening.
Marina Salang White. I'm an abutter to them too. And I want to just say what John...
I need you to address us,
sorry.
okay?
I just want to say what John said, that I agree. If you give to one in our neighborhood, we're going to have everybody coming up and wanting to do this. And then it's no longer a residential area for us. It's now a business. And we're trying to live in a residential area. Eventually, there's going to be children moving in, people buying, and children moving in, and you're going to have these cars coming and going because more and more people are going to want to do the Airbnb. We bought it as residential. We feel as though it should stay as residential. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak under this public hearing? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing at 7:12. Any comments or concerns from the council?
Through the chair.
Sir.
Mr. Fairbanks, can I have you come back up? I have a couple of questions. Sure. What are you looking for as a typical length of stay?
But we have various. We had somebody stay whose daughter was going to Thornton Academy, so she needed a room, and she was from China, so she was uncomfortable living in a room by herself, and so from other people, she had heard what we were doing. She came to visit us, and she ended up staying through winter. Other people come and they'll stay anywhere from a couple of days to a week, and that's mostly in the summer. I mean, this is Old Orchard Beach, so there is a tourist industry here, and some people like the idea of staying in a neighborhood like ours. Our listing, as has been mentioned, we have an Airbnb listing. It's actually indicated as a quiet retreat near the highway and near the beach. So
if you're looking to, if you could rent for 52 weeks out of the year, that's what you would do?
If we could rent...
1 week at a time?
We wouldn't do it over the winter. No, it's the circumstances for the other is because of the summer. It's that we have the ability to do both, and honestly, it's a issue of choice for us. And if it's very difficult to have somebody pay a larger amount of money in the summer if they're staying year-round. They want one set rate. So,
I guess that's my point. You won't have a monthly rent.
Well, we did up until June. Again, we had a lady stay from September all the way through June.
Second question: Are you serving food? Are you serving food? Are you serving breakfast?
No. We had addressed that issue. We saw that issue when we went for the licensing, and that issue came up in looking at the ordinance. That was removed from our listing. We do not serve breakfast. All we want to do is give people a place to stay. Like I said, it's a living with us situation. So that's all we're asking to do, and we.
So I haven't seen the website, but can somebody tell me, is a bed and breakfast on the website for his place?
It's just.
You can have a person, 2 people there every single day. Okay, there's nothing to stop him. He says, I'm not going to do that, but he has the option to put 2 people in there every day of the year, 7 days a week.
I get that. I understand that, but what I'm asking is, does his website say it's bed and breakfast?
You can stay there 1 day to as many days as you want.
Jay.
Right.
You can't address the whole crowd.
I know.
The Dev.
We have to vote on this.
All right. I could probably answer the question.
Thank you.
It's a website, and that's the name of it is Airbnb. There's also another website called Vacation Ownership.
Okay.
What's it called, Barbara? Vacation Rental by Owner. It's simply the name of the site. It does not even imply that breakfast is given. Every single listing has to give you what is offered. And like I said, is that we do not offer breakfast in our establishment, because that certainly would bring it into a different category.
Okay, I'm good.
All set?
And more importantly, we'd be more than happy to have that restriction on our license as well, just so that it's known if we do give breakfast, then we're in violation of our license.
Thank you.
So, through the chair, if I may.
You may.
If I can just follow up with a question from Jay's question. You said you had somebody stay there for, I'm gonna say a month, or I'm not sure whether it was several months or a month.
Mm-hmm.
How does that person eat? What do they, how is that
Well,
handled?
they
If you're not
were
feeding them?
roommates with us, and they shared our kitchen. It's just
So
like
in that
any
case,
other
you're allowing
roommate
them
in the
food.
house.
Okay.
Just like any other roommate in the house. We didn't, the question was, what did we provide it? I think that's, like, for example, the case law that I gave you did not address how much added things you would have to add to make a residential activity turn into a business activity. And certainly providing a kitchen is still a residential use, but if we were making breakfast for people, giving maid service, things like that, I think that it would change the category of it. And we've looked at it very closely, and we just want to stress that that is not our intention. We've, again, removed anything like that from our listing, and if the town council is uncomfortable with just my word, they can certainly add those restrictions into our license, because we don't intend to do anything but rent people rooms, give them a place to stay, roommating with us, cohabitating in our home while we live there.
Okay. And I just would ask, I'd like to have Larry explain the council's guidance on this, I guess, at this point in time, and what we can and can't do due to the covenant. You know, the covenant is a separate issue that we're not bound by, unfortunately. But I'd rather have Larry explain to the general public, and I have something to say after that, but I'd rather he explain that so that everybody hears it from that source, because I may screw it up, I guess, as I say it. I just want to make sure that you hear what I heard.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, as a town councilor from, I guess, legal, okay? So Larry, if you could just kind of tell them where we are bound in all this and not bound, and what our rules say today, and what's directing this, I guess, from this point.
Certainly, thank you. So as under the town's ordinance as it exists today, the application that is before the council for this one-bedroom rental is perfectly legal under the town's ordinances in a residential zone. And whether it's one bedroom or one room, the council has in the past given licenses out for this type of rental on many occasions. Staff has consulted with the town's attorney to just confirm that indeed what is before you is compliant with the town's ordinances as presented to you, and it is. I think that Mr. Fairbanks' offer to the council to add to the license restriction that no meals can be served, the council certainly can do that, and if you choose to amend it that way. with respect to whether or not this rental should take place in this particular subdivision because of the covenants that exist within the subdivision, that is a matter that the town is not able to insert itself into legally. And we cannot be interpreting or making judgments about what covenants say within subdivisions. That's a private civil matter between those who are part of the covenants themselves. So whatever sympathies the council may have for the concerns of the neighbors, or the staff may have for the concerns of the neighbors, the reality is legally we're not able to respond to covenants and enforce them. And the council is required to take action under the rules of the current ordinances. This particular proposal is legal under the current ordinances, and if the council wants to see a change so that this type of rental is no longer permitted, then the town would have to pursue a change in our ordinance to determine whether or not that's something we could do and how we might do it.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions from the council?
Yes.
Sir.
So, thank you, Larry, for clarifying that. So, as you've heard, I'm not thrilled about this at all. I'll make that very clear. However, I'm bound to move forward with this legally, okay? I can't just say no because I feel what I feel. But I think it's extremely bizarre. And I think it's a very difficult moment for Old Orchard Beach and for this council. And I've already asked that we pursue this. Now, whether we will or not, I don't know. We don't have a full body here tonight, which I think is very disappointing to me. I'll be real honest with you. I'd almost like to ask to table this until we have a full body.
That'll be my next question.
But for us to start having to wrestle with all of this in Old Orchard Beach, with all the problems that we already have, start wrestling with people that want to rent out a bedroom or a corner of their home, just seems to be extremely difficult. And now we have to sit down and try to figure out how to deal with this, because I really don't support it, okay? I live in a residential neighborhood. I've actually been through a lawsuit of this caliber already. So it's a long, drawn-out, daunting process, and I'm sure the covenants will prevail in the end. That's why you have covenants. But that's up to the people that live there. It's not up to King Weinstein whether this moves forward or not. It's up to the people that live there now to pursue this, okay? But I just want to make it very well known that I am not thrilled at all in having to support this tonight, okay? Nothing against you folks. I don't know you from Adam, and, you know, but when you have all your neighbors against you, you know, it just seems to me that you might take into consideration your neighbors. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you for your time.
Any further comments from the council?
And if there was a motion to table this tonight, or if somebody else thought, I'd like to hear it, because I might be in favor of that.
Through the chair.
Sir.
Just want to point out, council, that you've got two items that you're considering at the same time.
To separate. Through the chair.
Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I feel much like Mike. I'm not in favor of this, but we're handcuffed. We're locked at this point. There's not much we can do legally. So at this point, I don't think it's fair to ask the three of us to make a decision on this without the full council. So I would like to offer a motion to table the 6 Country Drive license approval until our next meeting, when we can have a full council vote on it. That's a table to the next meeting or whatever, so.
So to be clear, the motion is to separate the two items,
Separate the two.
tabling the item for 6 Country Drive,
Exactly, thank you.
and we'll handle 15 Winona as a separate item.
Right.
Is that your motion? Is there a second?
And I will second that with just brief discussion. I don't think that that's gonna change anything in the outcome. Make everybody clear of that. But at least you had five people voting on it, okay? That's what I'm really after more than anything tonight is, and that's for how we move forward, unfortunately. In my opinion, that'll be a gauge of the council as to how the council moves forward with this issue. And I'm sure we will move forward with it in some way, because Airbnb and this it's spun out of control in Old Orchard Beach, just like it has every place else. You know, I know we're in a tourist town. That makes it difficult to argue doing this. In all fairness, I hear the other side of it as well, okay? But I will second that, Jay.
Larry, just as a process question, if you could assist me in that. We vote on the tabled item, and then vote on the second license, is that correct?
What a suggestion would be to have a motion to handle the two licenses separately, so that you
Okay.
you have an amendment to the
I see what you're saying.
amendment to the order to address the license approval for 15 Winona Avenue separately from the license approval for 6 Country Drive. Then you vote on that.
Okay.
And then handle the
Them
15
individually.
Winona, and then make a decision on 6 Country Drive.
So the second on that Mike made would need to be removed?
You're gonna re-clarify
The motion, yeah.
the motion, okay?
Yes.
That's fine.
You would have to remove your motion.
It's fine.
Okay. And is there another motion?
Are we motioning for Winona?
I would entertain a motion to handle the two licenses in front of us in this public hearing separately.
And list one of them as first or second.
We're gonna
In the
handle them,
motion.
so we're gonna vote on them independently.
Okay.
Is there a motion to
So,
that effect?
I'll
You need a
make that
second,
motion.
And is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
And with no further discussion, we will handle the two items separately.
Okay.
First item, 15 Winona Avenue, Kris and James Zerio, 321-5-8, 3 year-round rentals. Is there a motion?
I'll motion to,
accept.
okay, I'll second, well, however.
With no further discussion, that will carry 3-0. And for Barbara Hickey and James Fairbanks, 107-3-6-15, 6 Country Drive, 1 year-round bedroom rental, 2 occupant maximum. Is there a motion?
Motion to table 6 Country Drive to the next council meeting, scheduled council meeting.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Ms. Reed, if you'd call the vote.
Calvin?
Yes.
Just a clarification, that it's Jeffrey Fairbanks,
okay.
not James. That's just.
Yes, very good. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor DeSiglio?
Yes.
Chair Thornton?
No. It will carry 2-1.
It can't carry 2 to
That
1.
can't, so that loses.
You need 3 votes.
So now we got a conundrum.
And the same thing would be true if you vote, if the vote is 2 to 1, either way on the approval.
Now it fails. Oh, boy.
So you may want to, you can certainly reconsider your vote, and you may want to,
Well, okay, I will do that. I certainly will reconsider my vote in the interest of, my no vote was for an opinion statement, not to, my intention was not to force a vote on the issue tonight. I have no problem with tabling it to the next meeting. That's perfectly fine with me. So, Ms. Reed, if you could record my vote as a yes, we'll carry 3-0 and will be tabled to the next regular meeting. Thank you. Thank you.
So 2 weeks from tonight.
To the town manager's report.
Thank you, Chair. First thing I wanted to let the residents of Fern Ave and West Old Orchard Ave know that there will be a neighborhood meeting tomorrow night at 6 o'clock here in council chambers.
Gentlemen,
Excuse me, folks,
gentlemen,
folks, can you, Mr. Fairbanks?
can you, gentlemen,
Mr. Fairbanks?
excuse me,
Mr. Fairbanks?
gentlemen,
Could you leave, please?
gentlemen, you guys need to have this discussion outside so we can continue our meeting. Please. Sorry, Mr. Manager, you can continue.
That's quite all right. So tomorrow night, Wednesday, January 8th, here in council chambers at 6 o'clock, there'll be a neighborhood meeting for residents and property owners of Fern Avenue and West Old Orchard Avenue, and the section of Washington Avenue between Union and West Old Orchard. A major road construction is planned this spring on those 3 streets. The 2 streets, West Old Orchard and Fern Avenue, are proposed in the planning of the construction to become one-way travel. And the work would include new sewer and water lines, curbing on both sides of the street, replacement of the sidewalks on the one side of the street, and road reconstruction. The work may also include some tree removal. The purpose of the meeting is to give a presentation by town staff and the Wright Pierce engineering staff on the proposed work, and to take questions, suggestions, and concerns from those residents present at the meeting tomorrow night. I want to remind residents that though we've been pretty fortunate in the last couple of weeks in terms of snow, there is winter season is upon us, and we will institute parking bans as needed during winter storms. So I would want residents to make a point of paying attention to those announcements. They're publicized on all the major television outlets and radio stations, and on the town's website and the police department's website. In addition, anyone can sign up to receive an email notification from the town of those parking bans. You can just go to the website's homepage, you click on subscribe to news, and you register for those alerts. Off-street parking during bans is available at the Memorial Park, Milliken Street parking lot, and the Ocean Park Square. I also, with respect to winter, I want to encourage residents to help in keeping the neighborhood safe this winter by adopting a fire hydrant, making a point to clear away snow 3 feet on all sides of the hydrant after each storm. No forms are needed, so you don't have to fill anything out. You just can, there's no waiting. If you want to do it, take those on, get involved, and adopt your very own hydrant. Staff is working with Woodard and Kern Engineering on a grant application to the Department of Environmental Protection for the wastewater facility infrastructure improvements. The intent of the application is to obtain some level of state funding in connection with the intended major facility upgrade that council will be putting before voters, likely putting before voters later this spring. We will be seeking to schedule 1 or 2 workshops with council in late February or early March to discuss with staff and with our consultant the scope of improvements at the wastewater facility. And on a related matter in terms of wastewater, there will be a bid opening on January 16th for the facilities administration building project. Budget meetings are underway with department heads for the FY21 capital and operating budgets, and I'll be turning in the both of those budgets to the town council at the March 17th council meeting. And then finally, Human Resources and departmental staff has begun the process of recruiting for summer positions in police, parking, or lifeguards, recreation, and public works. Due to the tight labor market that everybody's experiencing, we've ramped up our recruiting efforts, so we're doing more and getting an earlier start, and we encourage anyone who's interested to contact our HR office. Thank you.
Thank you. To new business, discussion with action, to accept with regret the resignation of Kim Verreault from the Biddeford Saco Old Orchard Beach Transit Committee and appoint Curtis Kohler III.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Just point out, Mr. Kohler is here.
Yeah.
Thank you for
I'd
your
like to thank him
willingness.
for coming tonight.
All night for that.
Yeah.
No further discussion? Carry 3-0. And thank you for representing us. Appreciate that. Item 7609, discussion with action. To consider the abatement of fiscal year 13 personal property taxes on 439 Pinehurst, Rodney Anderson, in the amount of $187.62.
Is there any information on
Yeah,
that?
sure, there is. Those taxes were issued in error by the town. The property was sold way back in September of 2012, and there was personal property bills and there was real property bills, and the two property identifications might have been cross-referenced at the time of the sale, which is why those 13 taxes remained unpaid at the time of the sale.
That's
And
good.
so
Motion
Mr.
to-
Anderson is deceased, and those taxes remain unpaid.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Further discussion? Seeing none, we'll carry 3-0. Item 7610, discussion with action to authorize the treasurer per 36 MRSA subsection 944 to record a waiver of foreclosure in the registry of deeds for the property at 5 Nason Drive, assessor's record T2021, Sherry Gerard, owner.
Is there a story here?
This is just a proactive precaution in case these taxes remain unpaid before the due date, so that the council does not end up owning, the town does not end up owning this particular property. I'm optimistic that the owner has paid a portion of what's due and is given us word that they intend to pay the rest of it, so hopefully that this won't be necessary and it won't be done unless
How
that's
far
the
out
case.
are their taxes? Are they?
Well, they go back to 17, but,
Okay.
so they're gonna pay the portion that they have to pay
Okay.
to steer clear of the
Is
foreclosure.
that in the trailer park? Yeah.
I'll motion to approve.
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll carry 3-0 to item 7611, discussion with action to cancel the November 3rd, 2020 regular town council meeting as it falls on Election Day, and authorize the closing of Town Hall on Thursday, December 24th, 2020, with Town Hall employees taking either half vacation day or half personal day.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? And just to be, just for discussion, one question I have, Larry. They're getting the whole day off, taking a half vacation day?
Correct.
And that's somewhat new, correct?
No, that's what we've been doing for several years.
Because I struggle with that. I know I've brought that up in the past. I struggle with closing town hall and requiring people to take a day off.
Yeah, it's.
They don't have the option to come to work if they don't want to use their vacation time. But I guess we're meeting in the middle with a half day, so.
Right.
I guess I could swallow that pill, but.
There's been nary a concerns in the six Christmases that I've been
No,
here.
okay, as
Yeah.
long as it's not,
No,
okay,
no,
very good.
Not at all.
I appreciate that. With nothing further, we'll carry 3-0. Item 7612, discussion with action to approve the fiscal year 21 municipal budget schedule and provide general budgetary guidance to the town manager for the fiscal year 21 budget.
So move.
For discussion, if we can, we need to provide some general budgetary guidance to the town manager. And I certainly don't mind starting. I think I'll echo what I've said over all the other years. My target range has always been 3. Obviously, I've always found this strange to provide general budgetary guidance. I guess my simple request is I don't like anything unnecessary. So I think the work you've done and presented in the past several years speaks for itself, and with Diana's help and all your staff, I think you guys do an excellent job. So if we get what we got last year, I'll be happy. So I guess it sounds maybe a little off there to put it in that light, but I guess keep doing the good work you do, because that's, I guess, my guidance. I like what we've seen over the past several years, so I'd like to see the same range.
I echo that also, yeah.
All set? No further comments?
No.
With that, it will carry 3-0. And to item 7613, discussion with action to set a public hearing date of January 21st, 2020, to amend the Town of Old Orchard Beach Code of Ordinances, Section 54-187, Restrictions and Prohibitions, amending flow of traffic on Fern Avenue, making traffic one-way from First Street to Washington Avenue, and on West Old Orchard Avenue, making traffic one-way from Washington Avenue to First Street. And again, this will be to set the public hearing for that.
So moved.
I'll second that, and if I could, I guess publicly, it appears there's a workshop tomorrow night here on this item. Just would like to make sure that it gets publicized here, I guess, at this point tonight.
6 p.m., sir, yes.
6 p.m. tomorrow night. There'll be a discussion on this. So, have all the neighbors that are involved in this been notified?
Everyone had received a mailing.
Yeah.
Both property owners and residents.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any further discussion? See none, we'll carry 3-0.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you all, have a great evening.